Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this session, our WEAVR Extended Reality Modular Ecosystem webinar. We are quite glad you're here, and today we will discuss about all the capabilities of our platform. And with me there is Chris. He will show you more in details how WEAVR work. My name is Giulio Cagnazzi. I'm an international sales manager at PACE. Whereas I'll let Chris introduce himself. Meanwhile, I'll allow the other people. Please, Chris.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris. I'm the solution engineer here at PACE WEAVR. Today my responsibility would be to show you guys how a live demo of how the WEAVR Creator, WEAVR Manager, and how the WEAVR Player works. So I'll see you guys in a few.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. Before we go into details with Chris, I would like to give you just a brief introduction about PACE and an high-level introduction about WEAVR and the reason why we started to develop this platform a few years ago, around 2018. So first thing first, PACE. PACE is a multinational company and we are specialized in software engineer. We are based in different locations across the world, and we won't focus too much today on the description of the company because we don't have enough time. Just to let you know, we have different type of business unit, and clearly we are part of the extended reality business unit. So the next one, basically, in terms of, besides within the extended reality business unit, besides the platform, WEAVR platform, we also develop custom-made projects, and we can develop any type of technology within the umbrella of extended reality. That means virtual reality project, mixed reality, and augmented reality project as well. So, Chris, if you want to go to the next one, that would be great. So, the reason why we develop WEAVR is because we've been looking at the market, the industry, extended reality industry, and personally, but I think most of us have found different kind of challenges in terms of proposing the extended reality project. And we found four main challenges that we can actually channel into these four ones that you can see in the slide. So the first one, when you develop something in extended reality, either which kind of technology you're using, it's time consuming. To develop something, I mean, it depends clearly on the type of the structure of the project, but usually really time consuming. Doesn't matter the engine you use, if you use Unity or Real, whatever you use, it's still kind of time consuming. It then brings a challenge up in terms of cost and price to the final client. The second one is that the whole industry is quite fragmented in brands. Competition clearly is normal in any type of industry, but also is fragmented in terms of technology and tools. For instance, if you want to distribute your project, you can do it manually, you can do it online in different type of tools. So in order to find a clear roadmap, you need to dig in different type of technologies. That is not always easy for the software engineers, and also for the final user. It's not something straightforward to understand how it works. The third one is most of the time. Actually, not most of the time. Now the perception has changed, but still a big part of the people, the end users or the decision makers, still see this technology. Clearly, I'm quite sure among us today there won't be nobody thinking about that, but still perceive as just as a wow effort or kind of gaming tool. So we've been trying to change this perception, not just us, clearly, the whole industry has been trying to change that, but with WEAVR, and our way of developing content is we've been trying to change, introducing, specifically when we talk about training purposes, we introduce a score system, data analytics, that actually we're trying to change this kind of perception. And I'll show you, Chris will show you a bit better later, and now I'll give you just a high-level introduction of how the platform is. So, what is WEAVR and how it works as a high level? So WEAVR is a modular ecosystem. We say modular because it can be used as a full ecosystem, or it can split in different modules, different core So the first one, the main one, is the WEAVR Creator. The WEAVR Creator is a plugin for Unity engine and can allow you to speed up basically the production, the development time, and make it easier as well. Saying that it's just a visual code, it doesn't give you like the right idea of what WEAVR Creator is. Visual code is just something you can see when you do it, when you use it, but in reality it is much, much more than that, and Chris will show you how it works. The second part, or the second component of the platform or the ecosystem, is the manager. The manager is pretty much the core system of the whole platform. That means that once you develop something with a creator, you can actually download a WEAVR file and upload it into the manager. From the manager, as an organizer, you can distribute remotely any type of project from your office, let's say from your desk. And you can create group of people, organization, and from there you can actually distribute it to the end users everywhere in the world. On top of that, you also will you have a dashboard, you will able to see all the scores, the analytics, the data analytics, if you're talking about training, the people, the end users has basically achieved. The third one instead is for the end users. So one of the main peculiarity of WEAVR that you can actually use any project you develop can be used in different type of devices. Clearly, we are extended reality people, and anything you create can be used in extended reality headset. However, what we developed here is something that technology can be worked also on desktop, the mobile, and also on tablet as well. So in terms of benefits, we're talking about the challenge before the previous slide. So in terms of benefits, the three main key benefits here are using WEAVR, you can actually reduce the development costs, basically, because if you reduce the time that you need to develop something, clearly you also reduce your cost, the cost at our cost. The other one is, it comes with reducing costs. You can increase your profit margin as well. And then we've been trying, and you can actually swap from a wow effort perception to something that it's more like operational impact for working related. How does it work? How we can reach those goals? For instance, we give you a few use cases. If you are, or you have in your company a junior developer, a junior software engineer, you can actually use WEAVR, learn how WEAVR works, and actually reach pretty much the same result as a mid-level or senior software engineer. That's one of the ways you can actually improve your outcomes. Another one is you can set some free time to your seniors engineers instead and allow them to work on more structured project, or actually speed up the production time using if a senior software engineer use WEAVR. That's one of the idea we have seen here. We have to see, we talk about ecosystem. So when we talk about these benefits, we don't focus only on the production side. Clearly is one of the important part, but you have to see the full ecosystem. We were talking about the market is a bit scattered and so on. So when we talk about improvements, we also need to analyze the distribution fact that with WEAVR, with the manager and the player app, can be any project can be distributed quite faster and easier, and can be centralized and organized in a much better way. I think you will see more potential. Meanwhile, Chris will talk about that more in details. So Chris, I'll leave the stage to you, and we'll keep in touch later when Chris is done. Thank you, Chris.
Okay. Hi, everyone again. So now we can start talking about, let's say, the live demo of the three things, which is the WEAVR Creator. A second. Which is the WEAVR Creator, the WEAVR Manager, and the WEAVR Player. But before we actually start, going into it, I just want to have a more high-level understanding of how they all work together, right? So the WEAVR Creator is basically the plugin that you put into Unity, as said before, and it allows you to create XR experiences without having to use any type of coding, and a lot of other different things that you could do that makes creation of XR experiences faster and more efficient, right? That's what we're going to be focusing more of today, where we simply We're going to be talking more about the details on it, how it works, what a WEAVR component is, what a WEAVR procedure is, and etc. So we're going to focus on that later on. But we also want to talk about a little bit about the distribution part of it, of WEAVR, which is the WEAVR Manager and the WEAVR Player, right? So the WEAVR Manager is basically what is a website that allows you to log in and as a different user and allow you to input, or let's say upload the procedures that you create through the WEAVR Creator into the WEAVR Manager for distribution, right? So I have it prepared right here. So here, as you can see, this is an example of what the WEAVR Manager would look like after you've logged in, right? So you can see on the top left side of the website, you can see that your company name. In this case, this is just for our WEAVR demo purposes, right? And from there, you can see multiple different tabs as well, right? Starting from the users, of course, these are the people that you can invite your users within your company, and then you can change. For example, if we go to my name. And here you can basically change their names, make sure that their names are correct, their departments, their roles. They can be the creator, they could be the administrator, the instructor, the manager, or the player, for example. Also, you can also assign them to different groups. For example, here, as you can see, and also you can assign them to different procedures, which we'll look on later on. So in this case, you can also put these users into groups as seen before. You can have, for example, a group A and group B, where you can assign different users with different procedures here. And one of the most important tabs that we have right here is the procedure tab, right? So in the procedure tab, this is where you would be uploading all of the WEAVR procedures that you have created inside your WEAVR Creator project, right? So from here, you can just simply press the upload button, and then you can just simply upload, the .wvr file. So, once you create your procedure in the WEAVR Creator through Unity, right, you'd be able to export it into one singular file, this is what it's called, the .wvr file, and simply just upload it here, right? And from there, you'd be able to assign that to different people, with different versioning as well. So different groups as well that you can do. You can also, of course, adjust the procedure name, the description, and as well add a image onto the procedure to make it easier to understand, right? Okay, so just to go back to the presentation here, in the WEAVR Manager, once you have everything that's you've assigned your users to the different procedures, that's actually when WEAVR Player comes in. Because in that particular case, the WEAVR Player is basically it's an application that you install onto the end devices, right? This means you're going to install it to your Quest device, to your Pico device, or maybe to your Android or laptop device. You would simply install it there. And then once you launch this app, it's simply just a username and password login. And then once you log in, you would be able to see all of the procedures that are assigned to you, right? So that's, once you've assigned everything in the manager, you will see that in the player. And as the player, you would then execute these procedures. And then from there, it would actually gather these analytics and feedbacks based on your performance there. And that's something that we can see also in the WEAVR Manager. So I'll switch back. And from here, if you go to the analytics page, you can see we have an extensive analytics page that can be seen here, right? You have your spotlight procedures, for example, how many sessions, how many actors, how many procedures, average duration, session health, the top users and top procedures, even the pressure points, and a lot of these different cool things that, as a training manager you would find this very useful to understand how well are our users learning, for example. I won't go into deep to it right now because I have the live demo that I would show to you later on, and I would show a more in-depth part where we would look into, let's say, one of the users' analytics and kind of understand how that works through the WEAVR Manager. Okay. So again, finally, we're in the WEAVR Players. The The WEAVR players is actually also part of this manager where you'd be able to see all of the resources here. Before we go to the different players, I just also wanted to show that we also have the documentation prepared here. So if you clicked onto it, you'll be able to see the documentation for WEAVR and of course the three modules of WEAVR, which is the WEAVR Creator, WEAVR Manager, and WEAVR Player. And if you want to learn, you'll be able to see all of the documentation there along with some videos. Okay, going back to it here, this is where you'll be able to see, your WEAVR Creator, where you would download this, and then, we would install it to your Unity project, right? And finally, as I said before, the WEAVR players, where you would be able to see all the different available players for like the Player PC, Android, Vive, MetaQuest, and Pico 4. These are simply applications that you will need to, let's say, sideload or download or install onto the end device. And then from there, you'd be able to just launch it and go to your username and password and see all the procedures available to you for execution. Okay, so now that we have now that we have all three covered, just as an overall, WEAVR Creator creates the procedure, right? Then we put it to the WEAVR Manager, where it distributes it to all of the players. And simply at the end, we have the WEAVR players who would be able to play this to play the procedures that they have, and then again back to the manager to close the loop, where it would show the analytics and understand how well are the players or the users, learning in terms of their XR experiences, right? Okay, so now that's understood, we can now move on to the WEAVR Creator, which is here in the Unity. Okay. All right, so as you can see here, this is just a normal Unity project that we have open. I already have a scene prepared here, as you can see. And then from there, you would simply install your WEAVR Creator through the package manager and simply install the WEAVR version that you need, right? And then once that's done, basically you would just need to use your username and password to activate your license, and then we can start setting it up for WEAVR, right? So the first things first that we need to do is we would see the WEAVR onto the toolbar right here, as so. We simply press that, and we can go to setup and immediately just press the setup scene, right? And that actually does two things. It adds the WEAVR multiplayer game object because WEAVR does allow multiplayers, around, I would say around 20 players that you could do in a session. And of course, the other game object that we have is the main WEAVR game object, which is basically our first-person view or our camera, especially, for example, in the virtual reality. So if I switch to game here, to the game view, you can actually see our first-person view, right? Okay, so as we're setting this up, right, the next thing that we need to do, what I would usually do is I would understand which setup project is it for, right? In this case, you have different options. You can do it for Android AR, Android VR, like for MetaQuest, Vive, Wave, and Pico. PC VR for just generic purposes, or Vive Wave. Or if you don't want to have a VR experience, you can also just have it for PC non-VR, because we do allow creation of procedures with simple WASD and mouse clicks, right? So it's quite important to kind of understand what you're building for. But if you, for example, build this, so for example, in this case, my project is built on the Quest, for the Quest. If you choose, for example, you would want to have it for, for the PC VR instead, you wouldn't have to do anything else. Simply, you have your procedure done, you have your scene set up, everything is done. You simply would just have to go back to the WEAVR setup project for and simply click on to what you would need. So that would save you time, instead of trying to make everything compatible, you can just switch it up based on the WEAVR setup project for. Okay. So I believe we have all of the setup done. So of course, now we can start talking about the two main parts of WEAVR Creator, right? So there's two main parts. The very first thing is that there's the WEAVR component. And then the second one is that there's something called the WEAVR procedure, right? So after you made your beautiful scene, for example, then in let's say in VR, the very first thing that you need to do, or let's say when you're trying to move and trying to interact within your environment, is to teleport, for example, to move around, right? In that particular case, for example, we could press on the floor, for example, here, I'm pressing here, and from there we can just press the add component, and we can see all the way down here, we have the WEAVR components. So if you press here we have a bunch of different WEAVR components that's allowed. We have the animations, we have audios, we have billboard systems, cameras, components, groups, and interaction systems that allow you to make, let's say, plain game objects that don't have these features have, XR and interactability, right? So for example, here for the floor, we simply want it to be teleportable. So I would go to interactions and simply add the teleport area. And just by doing that, we would be able to walk around and teleport into the scene that we have, right? So I actually have my Quest 3 connected here. So we can try to have a go at this and test it. Okay, as you see, I've already spawned in. It's immediately with your hands here that you can interact with different game objects. And from there, you can simply teleport around the scene that you have, right? So very quick, very easy, no code needed to do that, of course. And also another cool fact about it is that in the Quest 3, if you do remove your controllers, you would be able to switch on to live hand tracking. So for example, here I'm using different hand signs just to show that it is active with the hand tracking. Okay. Yeah. So that's the main purpose of basically the WEAVR component, is just that it allows you to make your 3D environment XR interactable, right? So let's try to, adding something that we can actually interact with, like just a plain cube, for example. Okay, I'll just adjust this, make sure it's a little bit in front of us. And again, for just so that we can make this XR interactable, we can go back again to add component, simply scroll down to WEAVR, you can check out interactions again, and you can see a lot of different interactions that you can do here. You can make it as a door, make it act like as a push button, as a knob, as a switch, and etc. Right? But in this particular, simple showcase, we're just going to make it something that's grabbable, for example, right? So in this case, it's simple. It's just a WEAVR object, right? And as you can see, it actually adds on, important other Unity components like the rigid body to add the physics, and of course the WEAVR object right here, right? But even once you had that, once you have that WEAVR object onto the cube, it immediately becomes grabbable, right? But apart from that, you can actually add a lot of different other features as well. For example, you can change the mass here in the WEAVR object. You can, change the handling type if you want it to be right hand, left hand, both hands, and etc. And even one cool thing, for example, just solely for the WEAVR object, you can even add hand poses. So maybe I can show that to you, where you can simply, adjust different hand motions onto the game object itself, right? So you can, you can adjust the thumbs, the index, which is pretty cool if you're having, let's say, more complicated objects, apart from a cube, of course, so that you can kind of precisely give a hand pose for each one of those types of materials, right? So I will just remove that for now. And apart from that, if you're a little bit more comfortable, or if you want more customization as well, you can also choose to have this expert button over here, where it allows you to add, let's say, change or edit a lot of different other things as well. Okay, so again, we can try this live and test it out. Oops. There we go. Okay, so we're back in again. As we've already done, we've already been able to teleport, and simply with the Weaver object onto the cube, we can immediately just interact with the game object as so. Very simple without having to do any type of, let's say, coding development. Okay. Then, so hopefully you can kind of understand the workflow for the Weaver component part at least. So simply, once you have your environment ready, I would say the best practice for me would you would start adding into, Weaver component to the tools that you're doing, or everything that you plan to interact with. I would just start adding Weaver components onto them, whether it's going to be a button, is it going to be a hammer tool, a screwable tool, and etc. Right? So that's, I would say, be the very first part that you should be trying to accomplish. Okay. So now the next thing that we have is the question that what's, how do we add a logic or a step-by-step onto this, right? And that's where the Weaver procedure comes in, right? So if we go back to the Weaver tool and go to the Weaver procedure, and if we create a procedure, let me just put that here. You can see that, you can create your procedure, you can rename it, we'll call it just procedure test, right? And then from there, you can also have the template where you can switch between virtual training or operation support. Virtual training is mostly used for virtual reality, and for operation support, this is more for the augmented reality part, right? You can also change the different execution modes here. We had the automatic, guided, and feedback. So automatic is if you just have a procedure that's more linear, so nothing too complex. Guided is a little bit more if you want it to be more immersive with, conditions where you really have to open a door, push a button, and etc. to actually move on forward, right? With training instructions and everything. And feedback is similar to guided, but the only difference is that it would any tips that you added onto your in your procedure, any narration or anything that helps out the user, it would simply remove that, right? So the value of that is basically it allows you to do the same procedure, but without having to recreate something, just to remove the narration and etc. Right? And finally, we have the select languages where you can choose different languages from here. Then you simply press create. I don't need to press create because I already have a procedure here. Oops. Okay, and once you press the create, you would be able to see the procedure editor screen over here, this panel. And from there, you can press the right click button and spawn different types of nodes. you know so here there's a lot of different types of nodes that you can be using, like such as the node, the event node, selection node, and the hub node. But for this particular live demo, we're just going to be focusing on the actual basic and the most important one, which is the step node right over here. And in these step nodes, we can go to the procedure inspector itself and see that we can actually start editing it from here, right? So here you can see there's the title, the number, the description, and the three main parts of what builds a procedure node, right? So in this case, there's the enter action. So these are basically the actions that happen once you enter this node. Then we have the exit condition, which is, a condition that needs to be true, for example, so that you can move on to the next node. And finally, we have an exit action, which is similar to an enter action, but it's just something that an action that happens before you leave the node, right? So here, for example, I think we can do a simple procedure for maybe just a 3-node procedure for us to kind of understand how Weaver component works with the Weaver procedure, right? So in this case, I would suggest that we just create a simple procedure where we're simply grabbing the cube, where we're getting instructions to grab the cube, simply place the cube onto the table, and then we can call it a day for that part. Of course, I promise you I will show a little bit more a realistic procedure just after this one. Yeah. Okay, so in that particular case, we can start with the step 1. And here we can just say an introduction. And from there, we can simply press enter actions. Okay. Oh, actually, there's a bit of weird things that's going on with my... Hold on, let me try doing this way, if it would come up. Okay. Just a second. Yeah, for some reason, my actions are coming to my different screen. So, but in this particular case, we can just say, when I'm pressing add action here, it actually shows all of the different actions that's available, right? So for example, here, I would just type it. For example, text to speech, and it would appear here. In this particular case, text to speech is already already added here with different types of voices that you can choose from. But in this particular case, we can just start adding, hi, welcome to the procedure. Right? And that allows us to start the procedure with a narration. And perhaps the next thing that we could do, so I think we can just add a simple wait time here. So I'll just add a wait time here. A 2-second wait time, so we don't rush into the text-to-speech, for example. And from there, I could just move on to the next step right over here. All right. So for the next step, I would just call it pick up the cube. And I can also add in another action, perhaps an outline action here. And from here, simply, we just need to drag and drop the target object. So of course, we're trying to grab this cube, right? So we could just preview it. You can see that it actually even changes the color in real time so that we can understand what are we trying to accomplish here, right? Okay. Again, I would also add in the text to speech. So I would put that first. I would pick up the cube over here. Very simple, very quick. And now we can actually see our very first condition, right? Of course, conditions can be very complicated. You can have, different timelines or different conditions over here. You can even have other and conditions as well. But in this case, we're sticking with just one simple one. So in here, the condition to move forward is simply that if we've actually grabbed the cube, right? So I would simply just drag and drop the cube, and I would just have an it is grabbed condition, right? In this case, we can just check, if the cube was grabbed with with my cursor, with my left hand or my right hand, up to you. Then we can just say anything, and then we can move on to the next step, right? Perhaps in the exit action, it would be wise to also have the the hide billboard. Yeah, for some reason my add action is being a bit weird because of the using multiple screens, but I think it's should be fine for now. In this particular case, we can just remove the cube, the outline on the cube after this condition is satisfied, right? So even without understanding any type of code, you can see the very first thing is we're just picking up the cube, we're outlining the object, and then we're waiting if the cube is actually grabbed with anything, and then we can turn off that outline over there. Okay. And finally, we can have our third and final node where we would call place cube on the table, right? Again, we would add another text speech there. I would just put the place cube on the table. Okay. And perhaps I would also add another one, which is called show billboard, where we can put a floating billboard on top of, I would say, on top of the table so that everything can be, we can understand where to put it, right? So I'll put it here. We can even preview that. I would say place cube here. Of course, we would need to adjust it so it's according to where we need to put. So maybe somewhere here. course, the style of the billboards, you can obviously edit that as well as to your liking, right? So we can have it here for now. Okay. And then once that's done, we can have the final and finishing condition, where I would probably say, think we could do an object in area. So it would just be object is an area. This one. And we're simply just adding, if the cube is touching the area of the table, which is the one over here, if it enters the area using its bounding box, for example, then we can end the procedure right there. We can have a simple text-to-speech, for example, where it just says procedure complete. Very simple, very quick. Okay. Then now that's done, I think we can understand, the very first thing is just 2-second wait time. Then we have a hi, welcome to the procedure. We proceed to the next steps where it says pick up the cube. We outline where the cube is, right? And then we have a wait condition where we need to actually grab the cube so we can turn off that outline that we just made there. And finally, we can have the, place the cube on the table where it indicates where the table is also. And we have an exit condition where we see if it's actually touching the table. And actually, we missed one here. I would actually add a hide billboard here so we can turn off the billboard that's floating here once this condition is completed, right? So it turns it off, and then we can start actually getting the procedure completed. So I will press the test button here so we can do it live, and I will start trying to do it in the quest there.
Hi, welcome to the procedure. Pick up the cube.
So as you can see, I don't know if you managed to hear that as well, that there's already the narration that happened. But apart from that, you can also see it here live in the procedure editor, what has already been executed, right? So from the introduction, the 2 seconds has been done, the text-to-speech has been spoken, right? And then from here, the pick up the cube, and now and the outline is happening, as you can see there. And we can just, wait for the cube is grabbed with anything, right? And then we can proceed to the next steps. So just a side note, this is very valuable for debugging as well, because WEAVR actually allows you to, it changes its color in case if you had any, issues, or maybe perhaps you've forgotten to add a target or etc. onto it, it would change the color to red. So it's easier for you as a developer to kind of target where you need to be fixing the procedure, right? So again, I will just continue this. I'll grab the cube.
Place the cube on the table.
And simply, I will just place the cube
Procedure
on the table,
completed.
and it should have the procedure completed. Okay. So as you can see, very simple, very quick. Simply just have your scene ready, add it with the WEAVR components that you need, then add the logic and the story, then you are good to go. Okay. But apart from that, so once you actually have that done, another thing that WEAVR also has is something called the score system. So the score system is quite, there's a lot of things about the score system that we can talk about, but I'll just kind of briefly run through what it does. But what it does is it allows you to add different types of errors. So for example, such as maybe we can do a grab error, for example. I'm gonna put this here. So in that case, we can just add different types of error within your procedure and have, let's say, certain points that you can decrease it to, right? So for example, you start the procedure with 100 points, but then, if if you have, an object that you grabbed that was incorrect, maybe I can add, I can deduce 5 points, right? If you want this error to be global, or do you want it to be specific onto specific nodes, for example, just like this example here, then you can also do that as well. So the score system basically allows you to, to add different types of, let's say, traps or errors within your procedure that allows us to kind of count, how many actually errors does the user have done throughout the procedure, and kind of understand, these are some recurring issues that's happening. Then perhaps we should he should learn more deeply regarding those types of errors, right? Okay. Also, it's important to point out that the score system is also available, of course, into the WEAVR Manager later on for the manager to see and understand, how the user has done his work, right? Okay. So that would be it for our, let's say, very short live demo here. But I do have another example here that I would like to show you guys, just a little bit more bigger, right? Okay. So in this case, this deals with the tire change procedure that we have here, for example. As you can see, there's these nodes. We are using different types of step nodes, hub nodes, and all this different type of stuff. And even without, being able to, without actually creating this procedure for you guys, you can also can already understand what's actually going node by node, right? Without having to read a bunch of lines of code, for example. In this case, you understand that this is the welcome. You can see that there's a wait time, there's a narration. We know that this is the pick up the tire phase where, we're outlining, we're showing a billboard. Then we have a condition where if it's connected and etc. Right? So it's pretty useful for you to kind of, if you want to build on top of the procedure, someone has done it before. Maybe I'd add, apart from this wheel, maybe I'll do the windshield or whatever. You can immediately just understand what's going on by just reading it as so. Okay. So in this case, I can use this as our example for now, where it would be the full WEAVR Creator, WEAVR Manager to WEAVR Player. So for example, once we've actually done this manually and we're done with it, we can simply, build this procedure. And then once we build that procedure, we can go back to the WEAVR Manager just to show you guys. You can go back to the WEAVR Manager and just go to the procedure and simply upload that tire change procedure into your WEAVR Manager, right? Okay. And then once that's done, of course, you also have to assign it to the proper person. So for example, here, make sure you assign it to the proper user, right? And then from there, you can move on to the WEAVR player itself, right? So I have the WEAVR player view also ready here. Just give me a second. Okay, so here, this is how it looks like once. So this is an example of the WEAVR player inside of the Quest device, right? So once you log in, you basically spawn into the login room, which this is the VR login room. Simply have your username and password, simply log in, right? And of course, you see all of the procedures that you have here. Here, this would be the procedure that we just saw a while ago, the tire change procedure. So simply download that, of course. And once you've downloaded that, simply you can just start, select the execution mode, and actually go through with the procedure, right? So I'm not going to go through the whole procedure, but as you can see, it's simply what you already have done in the WEAVR Creator being shown and being tracked through the WEAVR player, right? Okay. All right. And once the procedure is done, you can simply just, it will tell you to exit because you're done. And then from there, you can proceed to, do the other procedures or trainings that you're assigned to, right? So for the player part, that's completed. Now we can loop back to the WEAVR Manager. So for example, here, we can just go back to the users, for example, and we can go to myself, and I can go to the tire change procedure and kind of understand some of the details of how I have done during this procedure, right? So, there's the time limits and how fast did I do the steps. Apart from that, we can also go to more in details one as well, as you can see over here. Okay, so this is very useful, for example, for trainers to understand, not just as a whole unlike the analytics page where you see everyone as a whole, as a group, as a whole company, you can also see, each user, each procedure, and understand, how well are the people getting trained. Okay, and that closes our loop here for the WEAVR Creator, WEAVR Manager, and the WEAVR Player. Okay. And now I'm going to be talking more about, other things. So WEAVR goes further, right? We have very cool new capabilities for advanced workflows. So we have this in our Unity 6 version of WEAVR, which is available. We have something called the Integration Hub. So it basically connects WEAVR to external systems without rebuilding any communication logic, right? So in this video that you can see here, the person is, twisting at something within the, let's say the Raspberry Pi, for example, and you can see the changes live onto the virtual environment, for example, right? So this is very cool if you're trying to work with other external systems and trying to communicate that with the XR procedure that you have built into WEAVR Creator, right? We also have a very cool new tool, which is the Paint tool, which allows you to apply Paint, in VR and measure coverage for training and tasks validations, right? So you can do it either with a roller, for example, or just like a spray paint in this particular case. And it doesn't just work on flat surfaces. Of course, if, for example, you wanted to paint a car, you can also have that working as well. So again, this is just, again, a WEAVR component, or let's say that you can use and interact with, as we've mentioned before in the WEAVR Creator. We also have the speech recognition over here, which enables hands-free interaction with voice commands in this particular case. So it'd be good for just having any let's say verbal commands that you might need to have in procedures. Then you can use it as your exit condition, for example. We also have eye tracking. So if you can see the the red and green spheres onto the screen over there, like that you can see here, these are actually where it tracks where the eyes are going. I believe this is more specific to a device, which is for the Vive devices. And you'll be able to see it through these spheres right here. And we also have the shared asset repository, which is pretty cool, which allows you, which we provide you some free 3D assets that you can use, that you can download within your project and use immediately, right? So in this case, you simply just download it, and you can just add that into your project as well. Okay. And we also have something called the WEAVR Assistant. So this basically provides you contextual support within the immersive procedures. But this is something that you actually have to kind of add into your procedure, So it just provides a body to the narration of the voice, for example. It can, it can provide you tips and other different stuff, as well as follow you around if needed. Okay. And also, one really cool part about the new version of WEAVR is we also have something called the WEAVR AI. So as you saw before, we saw that we had the procedure for the tire change. You can actually create that similar procedure, let's say like a backbone of it, with just a prompt of what you wanted to do. As you can see here, as I prompted it here, it started creating the actual setup over here. Of course, the AI will not be 100% accurate, but it's a very accurate way to have, let's say, to have a backbone, to work with once you're starting a new procedure, right? As you can see, it's complete with even the actions already there without having to do anything, right? As you can see, it's if you remember the shape of how the procedure looked like with the WEAVR, where I did it manually, it is quite similar in terms of the structuring of it. Okay. And finally, I believe something cool for the software developers themselves. when no code is not enough, we do have a new feature which allows you to have your external code, or let's say custom code that you have. Then you can also now integrate it to your WEAVR project as well. So this would be very useful if you already have code that you've done before and you don't really want to recreate it. You just want to have it onto the into your WEAVR project. Then that's something that you would be able to do now. Okay, then that will be from my side. I can pass it back to Giulio.
Thank you, Chris. Your explanation has been outstanding as usual. We already have been received a few questions. The first one was from Trevina. So if guys actually you have any question, please write it in the chat and we'll answer to them. So the first one was from Trevina, and the question is it possible once these procedures are implemented to further tweak them using standard unit objects and classes? So Chris, if you want to answer, or we also have here, join us also, Georgi, it's up to you guys, whoever wants to answer to this question.
I think we can invite Georgi for these questions.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, hello everyone. I don't know if you can hear me. I think you can hear me.
Yeah, we do.
So I'm Georgi Pustika, and I'm the tech leader of WEAVR. So regarding the question, yes, absolutely. You can come back to the procedure, tweak it as you want, and you can add as well Unity objects, and then just call like different logics from the Unity within the procedure. So it's quite flexible.
Great. Another one, the second one is from Nelson Silva. Integration with MQTT for IoT and with LSL for biosensor would be great. So, Georgi, if you have any additional information about that.
So we've done some work with LSL, so we can definitely connect them. And regarding the MQTT and IoT, for example, with the integration app, there is quite a lot of flexibility. We do not impose any limits on the protocols used. And in that case, there is just a small integration effort on your side, on the client side. But it's really small, and with that integration, basically almost any protocol can be used to exchange data between procedures and and the external systems.
Okay. Another one from Yuri. Is it compatible with version controls like GitHub or Unity version control to share procedures, editors, edits?
Yes. So the procedure, when you're editing it, it's just a text file, so it works quite well with the version controls systems.
Okay, perfect. The last one still from Nelson. Is there a version from Education University even on VR headset? Well, I think I can answer partially of this question. Definitely WEAVR can be used for any type of industry, or so we don't have boundaries for that. I don't know, Giorgio, if you want to add something about that, but I'm pretty sure we already answered it. Unless, Nelson, you refer to something else. So. Perfect. Trevina, are there plans to expand these to Unreal and even other headsets? Georgi, I can answer that, but I prefer as a tech lead you answer to that.
So Unreal is actually on our backlog, but we do not foresee in the near future to expand it to Unreal. But regarding the other headsets, of course, we try to keep track with all the new headsets on the market and try to keep them supported.
Perfect. The last one is Abdul Malik. Is there any plans for iOS development for AR?
Actually, we already support AR development for iOS.
I would like to underline the fact today was, as a webinar, we couldn't show you plenty of the features that WEAVR has. So what we suggest you, I mean, keep asking questions if you, we don't mind. Actually, we rather like it if you ask questions. That means you are interested in it. However, we can also provide a free trial, 30 days free trial, and you can just basically register at this link that you can find in chat. Once you register, you can download the files. You will have the WEAVR Creator file, the manager, and the player. And someone joined now. And once you downloaded the files, you can also have access to the manual as Chris showed you. But for any type of question, you can actually refer to me. And in the next few days, we'll send you via email a recap of the conversation, a few details, this link to register for free. Also, if you're interested and you want to know about pricing and how it works and so on, you can actually contact me directly, but you will see my details in the email, so don't worry to write it down now, don't worry. And pretty much that's it. So once you download the free version, if you want to try it and test it, you can actually then contact me, and you can actually see how many features you can actually use within the ecosystem. I hope you enjoyed this webinar. If there are no other questions, okay, I assume nobody has to ask anything. Perfect. Thank you all for attending the webinar, and we'll keep in touch the next few days. And if you have any question, please go on our website and or contact me directly. Have a great weekend,
Thank you, everyone.
and thank you.